Hello, welcome back to BlenderSushi channel. This is going to be the continuation of my Versus series. So I have this live noding series and a Versus series. With the Versus series, I really use Blender with another 3D package. I try to kind of connect the two at some point. I will be using Houdini in this case. It's currently running on my old MacBook Pro. Sometimes it crashes or sometimes suddenly froze, so hopefully it doesn't do that too often. This is the version I'm using. It's a Houdini FX version 15.5632. Maybe not the latest, but that should be okay. We're just gonna use Houdini for fracturing, Voronoi fracturing, because currently Blender doesn't really have proper Voronoi modifier. Maybe soon, but I'll kind of try to combine the two. Mind you, the Blender actually has this cell fracture, so to do this is also doing the Voronoi thing, but it's just an add-on and it's a once-off kind of thing. So I want to do the same thing. It's actually just maybe like treating this Big Brother Houdini as like a tool to do the fracturings, and then after we do the fracturing, we go back to Blender right away. This is the free version of Houdini. It can export OBJ and some other file format, but there's a limitation on this because this is the free version. You can buy this is the apprentice version, I believe. There's another version where you pay, I don't know, maybe $100, and then you get this license to use it to create a portfolio, or I don't know, I can't remember. But anyway, I want to do a quick fracturing. I'll start with a box, for example. So this is like a Versus series. This is fracturing using Houdini. Let's try this. Okay, this is Blender default box. I'm gonna export it out as, you can export as Alembic, but for simplicity, just I'm gonna use OBJ for now. So this is OBJ out. I'll name it properly. This is a Blender out OBJ. And like I said at some point with my Versus series, Houdini is all about nodes. So if you've been following my Blender live noding series where I'm using Sverchok and animation nodes, this one is using Houdini. Just imagine Houdini is inside Blender. Just imagine that. And then in Houdini we can export that box. Oh, actually import that box. So I'm gonna use the file node. Everything is nodes in Houdini. Hopefully it doesn't crash. And Houdini running really slow on my Mac. I'm gonna dive inside this file. This is actually a nodes kind of a container. Go inside it and we have the proper file node. I'm gonna source that OBJ real quick from the desktop. So Blender out OBJ, accept it. Houdini, the nice thing about Houdini is it can also accept OBJ file sequence. So that's a plus. Okay, we have our box from Blender. Now in this guy we can have, I'll save it real quick because it might crash anytime. Blender Voronoi. Okay, I'll say fracture for Blender 001. So we have the OBJ being sourced here, and then now we can do anything to it. I can scatter points. Scatter node is also a powerful node that I wish Blender has it in Sverchok. Actually, Blender has Blender has scatter points using the particles. That's what I should mention. So scatter, I'm gonna scatter 10 points. This is actually the points that's on the surface of the objects. If I increase it, you can see it's scattering the points along the surface of the box. It can go really high. Houdini is really fast at doing that. Sometimes even too high number that the software just froze. Anyway, I'm gonna use small number, just 10, and then Houdini has Voronoi fracture. That this is actually one of the thing. This is one of the power nodes in Houdini. So by just plugging these 3 nodes in Houdini, we can get this fracturing happening. And this fracture is actually, if we look quickly, if I use explode, I think there's the exploded few nodes in Houdini. We can see that objects being fractured. Okay. So I'm gonna zero it out. Zero it out, and then have a look. I'm gonna have a look, and then file, export this guy. Right click, and then export back. I wanna export it back to Blender. For the export, save as geometry. Select. I'm gonna colorize this guy. Visualize pieces. Now it should have like a color that I can export it out as PLY. Save geometry as PLY. So box out PLY, accept. Hopefully it doesn't freeze. Okay, good. Now I'm gonna get that objects box out.ply. Did I name it? Save geometry box out.ply, but Houdini always save it in the home directory or something. I'll go to application. Gonna open Finder. Go to my home directory. Box. That's that guy. Yeah, that's actually in that territory. I'll just gonna put it on the desktop. Back to Blender. Phew, it's kind of scary, right? File, import, PLY, box out, PLY. Import PLY, and we have this guy. It's already being fractured. But it's a single object. It doesn't have the vertex color. Maybe I forgot to apply point color attributes in Houdini. I was expecting to see point color. Oh yeah, I forgot. It didn't actually transfer the point color. This is just a visualization. It doesn't transfer this color actually. Don't worry about that. So we have this guy. If we smooth it out, we can see that guy is actually separated into pieces. But yeah, there's this thing that's Houdini doesn't do. It doesn't fuse the connected pieces. Maybe cusp interior edges should do the job. do that. Export. Save geometry again. This time I'm gonna save it on the desktop just to make life easier. Apply, override, accept. So that's not what we want. Let's try file, import, PLY, box out. This guy hopefully is more what we want. Now this guy is actually the same thing again. Sometimes this is a I don't know, maybe in Houdini it's the workflow is really kind of okay, scatter some objects, do the Voronoi thing, and then it breaks it into pieces. But in Houdini it's kind of separating it into group, and they group it using Houdini group things, and I'm thinking how to transfer the grouping into Blender. Maybe this is not the greatest example, but I'll do it another way. I'll use another node in Houdini. It's called Voronoi split. Okay, this is the box, right? And we're gonna split it using Voronoi split. And for the split, I'm going to use line. Let's have a look at the result. Okay, this line is gonna break. It's gonna split this guy into multiple objects. You will see real quick the result I'm trying to do. This is actually similar to what I did in previous live noding series. I was using a Blender Boolean to do that. With this guy, this is like a single node that does the job like that, and then we can really split objects that way. This is yet another Houdini power nodes. Let's see how good this is when we actually export it out. Save geometry, box out again, accept. So this is our original box. This is bad. The problem with this is the points being merged, but they are still separate faces. You can actually merge it back using sphere chop, I believe. You can do that. I might do that actually. Let's get the box out. So we have this guy. I was wondering if this separation is correct. If I smooth it out, you see here, again Houdini doesn't fuse the face into one. Actually, if you go to edit mode and then you remove double, it's removing 80 vertices, and then you go back to this guy and then you smooth it out. Now it's correct. All the faces are connected. That's the thing I want to do with sphere chalk actually. Import. So we're gonna kind of hack. We're gonna take advantage of Houdini fracturing. Even though this is the free version of Houdini, this power node like Voronoi split and scatter, Voronoi fracture, it's really powerful. I think we can take advantage of that. Back to sphere chalk, objects in, get selection. As we know, this guy has all the separate faces. I don't like that too much. Gonna merge it using sphere chalk, remove doubles, vertices, polygon edge, and then use a viewer node. plug this guy in, plug that guy in, and if we bake, basically the one that's out from Spreadshop is merge. You see, each object is separate. You can actually separate the objects in Spreadshop and kind of do something with each and every single one of them. Let me do that. This become like a kind of like live noding. Separate boost part. So I'm separating the objects, and then I believe I can just list item this guy. There you go. This is like 5 different objects being separated using Spreadshop. In Houdini, to do that, I believe you use the connectivity and partition node. This I believe that's been replaced by assemble node. So if I'm not wrong, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm still kind of trying to re-understand this guy. Bit of history, I think with Houdini and Blender, this is like the two software. There's a similarity in which I learned both of them on my own. So I learned Maya, and then I learned that at uni, and then read a lot of books and video tutorials. So Maya, I know pretty well about Maya, and then I learned Blender and then Houdini. Actually, I learned Houdini first. Houdini is super complex though. There's only one or two books in English language to learn Houdini, while with Blender there are few more books than Houdini, and you basically can learn Blender on your own if you know other 3D package. So yeah, these connectivity nodes in Houdini, I believe, should kind of create a special variable. They call it class. Okay, this class have 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. This is like the index of the points that belong to the class. So connectivity nodes will check the previous geometry data and then separating the points. If they are not connected, separate it and make a class based on it. And based on that class, if we use a partition, if I think this is how it used to work back then. So based on the point class, separate it into group. It doesn't do the job. I don't know why. Maybe this become class like that. Okay, this is 0, 1, 1, 1, and then 0, 0, 0. I wonder why. So that's partitions and then group. So we have one group, 2, 3, 4. So weird. Back to the scene view, and then let me try something. If I delete a group, oh yeah, this is a that's doing the job. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is a Houdini. I think the assemble kind of doing the job as well. So assemble is supposed to be creating group. cusp edges, connect inside edges, create path geometry, and create group. Can I delete the group then? Oh, it creates the primitive groups. That's why. So if I want to use the group for primitive. Okay, there you go. Now it's separating the objects properly. That's how you do it in Houdini. It's if you first time you are if you're not a technical person, first time you get that, it's gonna be like a big headache, especially if you're not a programmer. But it's a concept that kind of super alien if you're not a programmer. Whoops, wait a minute. Gonna bring that thing back. So okay, let me explain again. So we get a box from Blender, and I use this for noise split. This is power node in Houdini, and we use this line to kind of separating this guy into 5 pieces. We can have more and less. So this is of course the power of Houdini. Yeah. Increase the length of the line. You can split it looking, so it's looking like this, like how I did it the other day using Boolean in Blender. So that's nice. I'm gonna save this. But they are currently in Houdini. They are like separated faces. It's not being fused or anything, but using assemble, it's kind of cusping the edges. And then here, this is actually I think a single object. In Houdini, you can. This is how it works in Houdini. So you're separating the objects based on the connectivity of the points or the faces, and you group it together. Once you have the group, you see there's a 6 primitive in pieces 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can have these nodes, like this is the delete nodes. You can delete the group, okay, because it's already been grouped. So we can delete, say, delete everything except or piece of 0, because we have this not delete non-selected. This is, yeah, this is how Houdini works. So you can have multiple of these, and then so you can, now you have 2 objects and you can merge them back together. So how many pieces do I have here? I'm gonna do it like a kind of in the stupid manual kind of way. Maybe there's a better way, using a 4 each. I think 4 each is actually the one that's gonna do the job. For each loop or for loop. This is just like the Blender animation nodes for each. I'm gonna use the manual stupid way where we deleting pieces one by one and then merge them back together to bring back into Blender. So delete 2, delete 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, this is deleting everything except piece 0. This deleting piece 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gonna merge this guy back. I guess that's okay. Let's bring that back to Blender, get rid of the offset, so this looks like connected, but they are separate. Save geometry as box out PLY, except wait a few seconds. Okay, back to Blender. File, import OBJ, actually not OBJ. File, import PLY, box out. So we have this guy. This is from Houdini. Now if I check, smooth it, surprisingly the face are still separated. Maybe I need to fuse it. Use a fuse node here. Okay, copy that, paste, shake it, shake. Save geometry, set. In a way, it's kind of similar to what I'm doing here inside SquareChalk. See, I'm kind of separating each and every object, and then I can remove double. So instead of doing the remove double right here, I can remove double over there. Vertices and polygon edges. Edges. It's not showing anything big. Well, let's load the file from Houdini. Box out. This guy. Smooth it. Surprisingly, it's still disconnected. Very interesting. So maybe there's a Houdini. Maybe that's a kind of the limitation that Houdini Houdini adds for this free version of the Houdini. Whenever we export, it's gonna be a separate object. Save geometry as, let's try OBJ. Box out OBJ, except file, import OBJ, box out, keep vertex order, ruler, don't split, polygroup, yes, object. Okay, this guy. Is this guy separate? Let's see. Smooth it. Surprisingly, this one actually, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's being consolidated. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Aha, okay, this guy is wrong. File, save, geometry as OBJ. Wonder why the PLY doesn't work. Maybe the PLY doesn't group the polygon. Okay, seems to work with OBJ. So file, import OBJ, box out OBJ, keeps maybe this guy polygroups. So now we have a pretty good looking objects already being separated. Okay, so we can actually do that. So one more. This is piece number 6. Now we have a full box, I believe. There's also 7, 8. Okay. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. This is the stupid way to do it, okay? Manual, but easier to understand. 7, 8. So there are 8 pieces that we separate and then we consolidate and merge back into a single object. Gonna export this into Blender, box out. So we're gonna delete everything except our original box. Original box, one piece, and then file, import OBJ, box out, polygroup. Let me turn off polygroup and then let's see. Let's have a look. File, import OBJ, polygroup on. So with this guy, I'll smooth it. Well, apparently, even with polygroups on and off, it's already like a single object. But if I use a PLY, file, import Blender out, box out, okay, file, import PLY, box out. This guy still a separated face. Now that's not good, but the OBJ sim works. With the OBJ working, of course, we can bring that into Spreadchalk. Separate loose part. We can select any of the parts. Let's see. This has rotations. From Houdini to Blender, sometimes there's a change in the axis. Kind of need to apply rotation scale. Okay, now we can separate it inside Spreadshot. Okay, there are 9 pieces. So instead of separating it, we want to perhaps simply play with the matrix of this guy. Matrix in, and use a random, not random, maybe scale. Vector in. So for the scaling, we need so it's scaling from the pivot. Maybe rotate. For rotations, I can kind of do this. This is if I give it like multiple angles, it's a random number, float between 0 and 90 degrees, size, how many? It's doing it for that single objects though. I want it for all 9. I have a feeling the rotation doesn't, it's not factorizing it. Let's apply matrix, will do the job. Matrix in rotation and the angle, so random number. There you go, that's exactly what I want. It's box 9, so that's so this or so I can summarize now what's going on. So like I say, the point is I try to kind of hook up Houdini with Blender. Originally I was going to do the fracturing, Voronoi fracture, because Houdini can do it, you know. The box, and then you have Voronoi fracture, and then you scatter the points, use the points as Voronoi fracture. Okay, it does that, and then you can explode it in Houdini. Yeah, that's very cool. And but in in order for this to be like a separate objects that's grouped properly to work in Blender, we need to do this kind of thing, like connectivity, partitions, or assemble, and then separating all for each objects, separate all, and fuse and fuse every separate group objects and merge it back, and then now it should work like that. And then if you bring it back to Blender, and you know, if you're doing like let's say instead of doing these crazy things in sphere chalk, you can maybe group it, or actually instead of grouping it, maybe make active. So I'm trying to get to the dynamic relationship. So add active. So this is an active object now. And make a grid. This is gonna be the passive object, and if make it fall. So yeah, that works like that. But I want this guy to be separate. Now if we dropped it, it looks like that. That's really the main idea I'm trying to do. Actually, I was going to separate these objects in Houdini using the fracture, and then bring it back to Blender, and then do this kind of magic. Like I said, of course, Houdini is really powerful that way. So you know, it's all these kind of nodes that does the job of fracturing and then separating them and then fuse them. You can actually work in Houdini if you're deleting a single object, and you can just work in these objects and do something with it, and then you merge it back together. That's really how powerful Houdini, but also at the same time it's really complex and technical. Yeah, but this kind of complexity can take you to the weird places, like even like here, if I'm see I'm deleting the rest of the objects. I don't care about the rest of the objects, and I can actually add a transform node here and kind of maybe scale it. Yeah, but the pivot is in the wrong place. I can't remember. I think the bounding box can then pivot the guy. It's kind of similar to think about it. Similar to what I've been doing in animation nodes and sphere chop. It's kind of thinking, okay, this guy is now a separate object. Where should I put the pivot? How do I make this object so that the pivot is scaling from the center of that guy? Like that, you know? How do we do that? Okay, apparently there's this pivot. Move the pivot to origin. No, we want the pivot to be there so we can scale it. No. Let me try doing that. Transform. Move centroid to origin. Scale it in X. But the guy has moved over there, so that's the original. This is the result. You probably want it to be down there. One. Scale it. Okay, yeah, that's a move centroid to origins, kind of resetting. That's kind of what I want. And now if we fuse it back, we get that. Perhaps in this guy, we don't want to scale the z-axis. Scale in the X and scale in the, okay, don't scale it in the Y, scale in the X. Okay, so that's apparently how if you want to do that in Houdini. Save geometry, accept, back to Blender. File, import, OBJ, box out. We should get, oh, not the PLY, should be the OBJ. But I think Houdini is about to crash now. The requirement of Houdini is sometimes pretty hard. Using my old MacBook Pro, it doesn't help. You need like a really powerful computer and a nice graphic card, and then you can run Houdini smoothly. So that's for Houdini, but for Blender, it's gonna work fine. But anyhow, this is, you see this guy being randomized in sphere chalk. Originally, it's just this box, and then this box bring to Houdini, do the fracturing and stuff, and then back to Blender and do this kind of physics simulations. Yeah, because Blender is cool that way. The simplicity of Blender is something that's Maya or Houdini cannot replicate. It's a trade-off, I think, because Houdini is a super powerful, complex beast right here. But anyway, ideally, all this software by a different company kind of will be used together. Of course, that's what's happening in the real workflow. Anyway, Houdini and Maya used together for different things. Blender it's on open source. It's you don't need to worry about license and paying the license. You have unlimited number of Blender in any computer that you can use. And yeah, I guess the main point is with my Versus series, which is this one, not the live noding. This is not supposed to be a live noding episode. This is just me trying to compare and then kind of trying to hook up Blender with other big 3D package. I kind of, with this Versus series, I normally, maybe I said things about other software. Sometimes, you know, what is this? You know, what is assemble, connectivity? What is connect partition? What is all this? You know, in SphereChalk, you just separate loose part. You know, like this kind of terminology. Maybe in Houdini, someone can create a node like this, separate loose part. You know, just this is a simple objects, but Houdini doesn't work that way. In Houdini, it works with the points and primitive. Point is a point, a vertex. It can be a vertices of polygon, but points is a point, and then primitives is like faces, maybe like a polygon faces, and then in Houdini you kind of you can separate each and every elements. You group the points together and group the primitives together, and then you do something further with that if you want. In Houdini it has a physical simulation as well. If you use the assemble nodes, it's kind of separating all these parts, and then you do the simulations into it. And in Houdini the simulation is called what do they call it? Not algorithm, but anyhow, it's its own. It's amazing in that it's magical in its own term. Sometimes you don't want that. You just wanna have an object, you fracture it, and you separate it into separate pieces, and then apply rigid body into it. Yeah, anyway, that's for today's Versus series. Blender and Houdini working together to do the fracturing, and yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next video. This is the Versus series of BlenderSushi. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye.